Hi, and welcome to Knitting on the Float. My name is Tracy, and I'm your host. I am coming to you from a gray, foggy-ish Vancouver day. It is 5.5 degrees Celsius. It's been gray most of the week, but the good thing about that means that I have gotten some crafting done. So I have some wonderful things to share with you this week. I hope that wherever you are, you have had a fantastic week and that you are ready to sit down, take some time for yourself, relax, have a nice warm or cold beverage, depending on whether you are snowed in or roasting in that hot sunshine. Northern, southern hemispheres. Oh, I love summer. Missing summer, but again, at least it is above 0 degrees here. Anyway, I hope that you have that warm, cold cup of whatever and you are ready to sit down, do some crafting while I chatter away about what I've gotten up to this week. Before I start that chatter though, let me tell you where you can find me. I am Tracy RR on Ravelry and I am at Knitting on the Float on Instagram. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. This is a podcast where I usually talk about knitting, and this week I am talking mainly about regular knitting, but I also have a bit of some sock machine knitting to talk about as well. So welcome, and I hope that you have a chance to craft along with me while I chatter. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. I know you have your cold, warm cup of whatever kindness it is you are drinking, and you have got yourself situated nice and cozy and are ready to start chattering. But before we do that, let's start off with some tea time. And as you can see, I am using my silly old bear mug. This is my Creature Comforts mug. It's nice, it's big. It holds a lot of caffeine, which is wonderful. And it is probably the oldest mug that I have that I absolutely love. Today, I am drinking Yorkshire Blend Toast and Jam, and this tea is so lovely. I am getting a little bit low on stock, so I do need to get over to the British store, get myself some more Toast and Jam, biscuit blend, and the bedtime tea, because these Yorkshire teas are delicious. So here we are. I have my Creature Comforts mug, my Winnie the Pooh, and this week, let us toast to, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, staying nice, toasty, and warm. And if you are in the Southern Hemisphere in a warmer climate, staying cool, calm, and collected. Cheers to that. This week has had me focusing on socks for most of the week. One other project in there, but for the most part, it is socks. So I'm going to start off with a sock project, and you've seen this one before. This one is living in my beautiful London bag made for me by my friend Christine. And inside are some beautiful teapots, because tea is always wonderful. And I am using Trailing Clouds Mind the Gap colorway. You had already seen that I had finished one sock. So these are all of the colors of the London tube, and these are so much fun to knit. They knit up so quickly when you're knitting with self-striping, I find. Last week, I was still working on the leg, and I've taken it out a couple of times this past week. So I was in, I think around here, and I was just about to start the black stripe. I have now done my slip stitch heel. I've done my square heel turn. I have gotten through the gusset, and I am in the foot. So these are matching up pretty nicely, which means I have the yellow and the red, and then I will start the toe. So I'm almost done my London socks. So I started these when I was in London, I think in early December, because I think I cast on one of the Vlogmas days. So I started these in December. I'll have to go back and put it in my Ravelry page because I don't have that and figure out the date. And I should be done shortly. So maybe for next week, that would be nice. I have another pair of, I have a pair of mittens that I'm also doing in this colorway, and that hasn't had much love recently, but will be something I'm going to be focusing on in the days ahead. So that is my progress on my Mind the Gap socks, and that felt really good to just power through, and like I said, I'm almost done. Staying on socks, I have 3 pairs of finished socks that I have done this week alone. And they are not fully hand knit like my Mind the Gap ones. These are done on a circular sock machine. So last week I was talking a little bit about the fact that I have a sock machine from Earl Bacher, and I got it in 2018, and I had been playing around with it the past week, trying to figure out heels and toes and cuffs. My heel weights arrived. We'll get to see those in brown paper packages. So I have had a lot more success this week and now have 3 pairs of completed socks. So a couple of them are still a bit damp because I've been soaking them and then blocking them. And I've been just using some wonderful Knit Picks Felici yarns, self-striping, for some fun socks. So here is a pair here, and I have matched them up pretty well. So 1 pair of socks done, and I'm just at this point still trying to figure out how many rounds I need for different sizes, what my favorite bits are. I have found a heel that I really, really like, and this is the wrapped heel. And I really like how it looks. Now the difference, of course, between a sock on a circular sock machine versus a fully hand knit socks, this is still hand knitting, it's just done a little bit differently, is you're going to have your heel flap, heel turn, and gusset taking on more stitches. So you're getting a nicer instep. So these will always fit much better than ones made on a circular sock machine. However, the circular sock machine, I was timing myself yesterday. I got down to the toe. I was just short of 45 minutes for 1 sock, and I messed up. So it takes me about 45 minutes, I think, to do 1 sock. And that doesn't include stitching up the toe. The other difference between a hand knit sock and a circular sock is you knit off your toe and then you are Kitchenering this little section here. So for me, I usually leave 14 stitches at the end, and then I Kitchener along there. So I've only got 28 live stitches that I'm dealing with on here. And on this one, and I'll show you this one because it's a little bit more rough looking, you're actually doing your toe and you're Kitchenering or grafting along this top part. So if you think about a commercial sock and they've got that line across the top, that's because on the circular sock machine you make the toe and then you fold it over and then you graft it along here. I was finding it really difficult to do the grafting with just a regular needle from working from the sock, and I was finding I was dropping stitches, and as you can see, this one's a little bit messy because I dropped a couple stitches and then had to go back and catch them, and but not bad for a first try. But that night I was thinking to myself, I wonder. And what I decided to do was to grab my beautiful Chow-Goos, and I just took the needle, picked up all of the threads. I had a bunch of waste yarn at the end here, and connected all of the bits that I needed. So I picked up 32 on the bottom, 32 on the top, for a total of 64 stitches on my needles, and then I grafted. This one here, I picked up the wrong leg. So I picked up the second leg. This one I picked up the first leg, and I am much happier with that. So moving forward, I now know that my preferred method to grafting is to pull out my 2.25s and do that extra little bit of work putting them on, because then I'm feeling a lot more confident with my Kitchener stitch or my grafting, whatever you want to call it, off of the knitting needles rather than just sewing it and hoping I'm catching the right ways. And there were some great tutorials on YouTube, but I just found using my knitting needles and grafting the way that I was most comfortable was easier. Now the difference is with my Mind the Gap, I mentioned you're doing the end here, so you're dealing with 14 and 14, 28 stitches. This one you are dealing with 32 and 32, 64 stitches, so it is definitely a lot more of a time spent grafting, but again, I like how that has turned out. So I now have this beautiful pair of matching rainbow socks, and these are all Knit Picks Felici that I've been working with for these ones. And I have this beautiful pair. I'm not sure what this colorway is. I'll look it up and I'll put it down below, but it is a beautiful Knit Picks Felici in those blues. Would look fantastic with jeans. And these ones are still drying. My legs are now wet. And this one I know is called Dark Side. And I was thinking it was like a Star Wars thing, but one of my neighbors said, oh, like Pink Floyd? And I went, yes, like Pink Floyd, the Dark Side album, where it has the prism and then the rainbows coming out with the black background. So Pink Floyd, not Star Wars. Who knew? My neighbor. Anyway, so these are the pair that I worked on yesterday, and they are a pretty good match as well. So I'm pretty pleased with how well I've been matching up, because when you get a ball of Knit Picks Felici, they don't start at the exact same place. So if I buy some turtle pearl hand dyed or some mustache yarns, they come in 2 small skeins and they are perfectly matched. So you can start your project and you're starting at the exact same spot. This one you have to get a bunch of waste yarn and pull off as much yarn so you can sort of match them up if you want matching socks. And for these ones, I definitely wanted matching socks. If you're using a hand dyed, it's not going to matter as much unless it is a hand dyed self-striping. But if you're using just like a fun speckled yarn, it's not going to matter. But for that self-striping, it is fun to have those perfectly matched socks. So 3 pairs of socks this week on the sock machine. The next one I will be doing is this gorgeous purple with aqua and pink violets in here, navies, just a beautiful color. It's more like a dark periwinkle rather than a navy, but look at those colors. So that will be really fun to get knit up on the sock machine. I'm hoping to do that today. And then I'm going to try some of my other yarns. It's been fun working with the Knit Picks, but I am now out. And this needs to go back into the proper bag. So, fun with my circular sock machine. And it feels good to finally feel like I've really gotten a good handle on the cuffs, the heels, and the toes. I am loving this wrapped heel, and I've also been using it on the toe as well. So I like the look of it. Again, they feel a little bit different than I don't want to say properly hand knit pair of socks, because this is still a form of, you are having to manually do a lot of things. So you are still knitting, but a gusset, heel flap, and my favorite type of socks that I put on my knitting needles rather than on the sock machine. How else do you say it? It just doesn't sound right when you say properly hand knit as compared to machine knit. So there is still quite a lot of learning curve to be done in the machine knit. I have blocked these, and so a little bit of soak, put them on the sock blockers, and they have just bloomed so nicely. Here is one that has not been soaked, and it's pretty rough. And this one here is so soft in comparison. Same yarn, a little bit of water. Water is magic. Plus, it's always important to wash your socks. So at least knowing that when you wash them, they will turn out beautifully, that is a wonderful thing to know, because wash socks are important. And I have to say, the Felici is really lovely to work with. I have worked with Felici before, and most of the time I had done just some sock snakes and then added in my own cuffs, heels, and toes. This is so much faster to be able to do it fully on the machine though. So 45 minutes a sock rather than a half a day putting in the cuff, heel, and toe. I think I'll stick with working with my machine, trying to finish off the socks. I do have a ribber as well, but for now I'm just going to stick with the cuffed hems. I thought they would be kind of weird, but after trying one of these on, they actually feel really nice. They don't have the same stretch that either a twisted rib or a ribbed cuff would have, but they do have some elasticity, and I'll have to make myself a pair and see that they do stay up for the day, give them the full test drive. But these ones are going to be gifts. So I hope that they fit. I've been doing a lot of guesstimating this week, and but I think they'll make wonderful gifts. Anyway, that is something that I worked on this week, and we'll continue to work on, and then I'm going to get into the stash. I've got some really fun Lorna's laces that I'm going to use and knit up into some socks. I have really loved working with the Knit Picks Felici, and I've gone on the site a couple of times. They've got some wonderful colorways, and they're all like a limited edition colorway. I have to battle with myself though, because I need no more yarn. Repeat that to yourself, Tracy. I need no more yarn, but I want more yarn. But I need no more yarn. Anyway, I have a lot of yarn I need to work through first before I'm allowed to buy any more Knit Picks Felici. But I do think that at some point in the next little while, and it may be a year or so from now, who knows, that Knit Picks Felici may come back into my life. But so soft, especially when it is washed. The final project that I'm going to share with you is not a sock project. It is a test knit, and it's been getting a little bit of love here and there, but my priority really has been to figure out the sock knitting machine, because I am going to Toronto and I wanted to bring some gifts with me, and in snowstorm and snowy cold weather, what better gift to bring than nice warm circular sock machine knit socks. So the project that I am working on that is a test knit is by Amy Loudon, and this is the Arconia sweater. It is still in the testing phase, but it is coming along. I did see a beautiful sweater from Lizzie Makes. She's on the test team, and hers is finished. It is on a mannequin. It was put up on Instagram last night. It is gorgeous. I hope mine will be as gorgeous as hers. I am using the beautiful, and let me grab my yarn. This is La Bien-Aimée, and this is Cory Confetti in Gray Bow. So, Gray Vancouver Day needs a rainbow. These little pops of colors are definitely making my day. So this is my sweater so far, and I gotta make sure I don't drop any stitches. I have joined under the sleeves. When I left you last, I think I was just up here and I hadn't joined yet. I was just working back and forth on the front, I believe. And then later in the week, I think probably on the weekend, I did join in the round, and I'm now just knitting rounds. I have decided that I'm going to make it a little bit longer than Amy's, and I'm going to, where it calls for an 8-inch length, I'm going to go for 10 inches in stockinette length, and then I will add on the 2.5 inches in ribbing. So mine will be a little bit longer, which means a little bit more knitting. That's okay. I've got enough yarn, and I'm more likely to wear it more if it is more down below my waist and sort of on the hip hugging rather than more cropped. Amy's sweater is right here, and it's got this beautiful neckline. I think it's a rolled turtleneck, so I still have to add in my beautiful neckline. My favorite neckline is a mock neck. I think that would look really amazing on here too, but I think the rolled turtleneck will look very nice in the Cory Confetti. I am, as I mentioned, going to make this a little bit longer. Now, one thing I have learned, I'm not a prolific sweater knitter. I used to make sweaters when I was younger, and it would take me forever to knit them. And then when I'd put them together, I just really had no concept, or basically I had no clue on proper sweater knitting. And, it would say, wait till it's, 8 inches. And so I'd have my little thing here and measuring away. Am I there yet? Am I there yet? And sometimes I just get sick and tired, stretch it out a little bit and measure, is it there yet? And then I read an article, and I wish I knew who wrote this article, just about the whole, where's my gauge swatch? The idea of the swatching and all of the basic information. And I don't know why it took me so long to figure this one out, but my swatch, which is now washed and blocked, 4 inches. So I just have to know how many rows, 4 inches. So where before I always thought this was my best friend, Durham College was my best friend, tape measure. I have now realized that in fact, this is my best friend as I'm knitting, because I believe this one is 28 rows equals 4 inches. So if I want this to be 10 inches, I just have to figure out the math in the gauge. So 28 plus 28, that is 56, which would get me to 8 inches, but I want 10. So I then just have to add in another 14. So I'm now aiming to knit 70 rows, and I am currently at 57. So best friend. And then once I have washed and blocked it, I should be, because I do have a gauge swatch that tells me I was doing pretty well, I should have a nice 10-inch length to the ribbing. And then I did do a ribbing swatch as well. And so using that size needle, I just have to do the math that the ribbing is 2.5 inches. Well, of course, I then have to figure out the math. How much is 2.5 inches? How many rows? And yeah, that was a really big turning point for me, that we're not measuring on the dry fabric, we're measuring your finished product. So you have to actually look ahead, do the math. And it's not that hard to do it, but that was a real game changer for me. So that was enlightening for me, and everyone else is probably saying, yes, Tracy, we knew that. But maybe there's somebody out watching today that didn't know that. So I hope that was helpful for anyone who didn't, and for everyone else, Tracy, good math. The wonderful thing about crafting is we are always learning something new. So that whole sweater fitting thing was new to me, I think maybe a year and a bit ago, but certainly has resonated and makes things make a lot more sense, and has built my confidence in sweater knitting. In this project, I have learned a new wrap and turn, and I think there's something else that I've learned, but I can't remember what the skill was. But I've had to do a couple of different things. Maybe it was the cast on. There was something I had to pick up and learn. Oh, I think it was picking up purlwise rather than picking up and knitting, picking up and purling. That was a new thing that I had to learn. Anyway, this is the Arconia sweater. As I mentioned, it is by Amy Loudon. I believe the release date is going to be February 14th, and it has been a very nice knit in between sock knitting, and it definitely needs a lot more of my attention. And oh my gosh, though, when it is done, it is going to be so gorgeous. And where I mentioned about the Felici and how the texture has changed so much just with the blocking, I wish you could feel this swatch. It is so soft, and it really feels so different than the texture I'm working with now. So I know that once I have blocked this sweater, it is going to be so soft and cozy and gorgeous, and with a beautiful neckline. Not a mock neck, turtleneck, my second favorite. Anyway, that is my Arconia sweater and all of the socks. That is all I have for my favorite things this week. Last week I mentioned that I was going to go upstairs and get a project bag for my Arconia. I have not done that yet. Oh well. It's now time for brown paper packages, and this week I have a few things to share with you. One of them was gifted to me, and the other two have come in. And I mentioned last week that I was expecting my weights. I put them over to the side rather than on the couch because I didn't want to injure myself with these. So these are the weights that I got from Erlbacher, and these are heel forks. So there were 3 of them in the box, and these are a bit sharp, so that's where I almost hurt myself earlier with them. But there are 3 of them, and what you do is while you are working on the heel or the toe, you put these in to pull the knitting down. And I have to tell you, this has been another game changer, because it has really helped me to get those heels working, where before I was having to, I had a little hook that came with the machine, and you have to pull down, and you're trying to add weight. It just, and you're, trying to learn. It was really, really much more difficult than using these weights. And yes, these heel forks are fantastic. I mentioned last week that the customer service at Erlbacher is phenomenal. Again, the customer service is phenomenal. So I was glad to get these. They came on Monday, so a little over a week in the mail from the US. And when I got them Monday, was able to put them in, figured out a new heel that I wanted to try out, and I am off to the races. So those came in the mail, and they are wonderful. Another thing that I had ordered that arrived, I think on Monday or Tuesday, I think Monday actually. Monday was a bonus day. I ordered these little frames. I've got 4 of them, and there's a little chain that came with each, although it might be kind of nice to put some jute in here instead, make it look a little bit more rustic. And I like the fact that these are stainless steel edges as well. These are just little frames that open up, and I have some beautiful English paper piecing hexie flowers that were made by Jules Hill, who is So Sweet Violet, and those are in square black frames, and I've got those hanging in my bedroom. I wanted some of these glass frames because what I want to do is over Greg's and my towels, we have a towel each, and we have a hanger for each of them. Greg's always confusing it, and I don't like sharing my towel. I just don't. So I've sewn a little button on my towel so I know this is my towel, and if it doesn't have a button, it's Greg's towel, and it hangs in a certain spot. Well, sometimes he forgets which is his hanger and which is mine, and that drives me bonkers, just bonkers. So I thought if I got a frame and I do a little cross stitch with a G and a T, not gin and tonic, Greg and Tracy, and put them in here, I can then hang these above each of the towels. Then he can see G, Greg, that's his towel, and T, Tracy, that's her towel. I'm not going to do his and hers, I'll just do G and T. And so I was able to get 4 of these for different projects, and I think it'll look really nice in the bathroom. I did not paint this week. However, I did hang the towel rack where I wanted it, and I absolutely love how it's starting to look. I moved a few things around in my bathroom. I put up the new mirror. I think I showed that on last week's podcast, and then I moved the other it's a wood on the outside, but it's glass on the inside. It has a little toothpaste, shower, and maybe a hairbrush, something else. But it's this cute little piece that I've had for years, and I love it. And I think these with a hexagon piece of linen with the G and the T on it will look pretty amazing. So that came in the mail this week. And now I just want to make sure I put this back without damaging, because glass, don't want to break it. So bubble wrapped, put that aside so it doesn't get broken. So I have weights and I have my glass. The next thing that came in my house this week was gifted to me, and I love it. It is, my neighbor gave me a drill. So this is one of his old drills. It doesn't have the battery on the bottom right now, so it's not working, so I can't make it go zoom, zoom. One thing that I had picked up from Erlbacher was this bit. And this bit is to go on a cone, because when you use the circular sock machine, working from a regular cake or a regular ball does not work so well. So you put this in here and then you can wind your yarn. So you wind your cone, and I shared this a little bit earlier. So I just put this here, and it's really neat and you just go back and forth holding your yarn and zoom, zoom, zoom. And it's like watching rainbows get on a cone. It's pretty mesmerizing, actually. Anyway, so my neighbor had an extra drill. I was talking about maybe going out and getting a drill so that I could wind yarn. And he says, wait a second, I think I've got an old one. And so the battery on the old one is a little bit weak, but I believe you can buy a new one. It's a DeWalt. It's a lovely drill. So that was a wonderful thing that came in for brown paper packages. Something I was given a cordless drill as a wedding gift by my mom a long, long time ago, almost over 25 years ago now. And unfortunately, the battery is completely dead on it. And it's not one of those ones that you can easily just get a new battery for. It's an old style, it's a beautiful drill, but unfortunately it doesn't really work all that well. We brought it with us. The bits are great, but the drill is toast. So to get this new one, and I've been debating, do I get a drill, don't I? I have a drill. And this bit is, I was worried, would it work, wouldn't it? Yes. This thing works like a charm, especially for when I'm using the circular sock machine. And when I messed up the other day, I'm just trying to find that little bit here. All I had to do was pull it off the machine, grab the end, grab the drill, and I rewound the yarn. So you just have to be careful you don't get a bunch of yarn barf going off. So you have to do some yarn management. Anyway, haven't had a brown paper package for a while. This week was pretty good. Weights, some little picture frames that I plan to do some crafting for, and a gifted drill. I'm pretty happy. It's now time for Bits and Bobs, and this is my segment where I talk about anything and everything not necessarily knitting related. And the knitting portion, all these socks that I have been working away on instead of on my test knit. I've been working on those because next week I am flying to Toronto. We have recently discovered a very, very budget airline called Swoop. So we will be flying crazy prices from the Vancouver area to Toronto on Monday. Nathaniel and I will be going to Toronto, and he's part of a ukulele group called Youth School, and they are doing a really, really neat thing. I can't share what that is at this moment, but as soon as I can, I will definitely share on the podcast. So Nathaniel and I will be flying into Toronto on Monday. And then Tuesday, he's going to be doing this ukulele event. And then Wednesday, we are going to go see the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which my mom and I saw in London, which was 2 parts and absolutely amazing. It's only 1 part in Toronto and in North America. Or it's the 2 acts, but they have very much precede down the play. So they've taken out some other bits that were in the London show that are not in the Toronto show. But we'll be seeing that Wednesday, so that will be very, very exciting to take Nathaniel to that. And then Thursday, Friday, we'll be just having some nice time with family and then flying back home on Saturday. So that goes over Thursday, which means next week I will not have a regular podcast, though I do hope to do some knitting while I'm away. I did mention, and let me just pull out the knitting drawer, that I am hoping to spend a little bit of time with my other Mind the Gap. And these are the start of this pattern, The World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits, and this is a fabulous, fabulous mitten pattern. So I started these. My mom says she likes a long cuff. I started these in London, and I am planning to finish these and bring them with me to Toronto, maybe work on them in Toronto a bit as well, depending on what I work on this week. I really should be spending some time on the test knit, and I have a few more socks I want to make. So these may just be plain knitting and then working on in Toronto. So the World's Simplest Mitts will come with me and be gifted. So I'll have to just take some photos to share with you once I am done. And anyway, fabulous pattern. This will be coming with me. And other knitting to bring with me, I'm not sure. The interesting thing about our airline, so it's one of those discount airlines, flight prices are super, super low, which is fantastic. However, they get you in the baggage. So I am bringing a suitcase with us there because I'm returning my mom's suitcase. And inside that suitcase, I'm going to put the carry-on, and then I'm bringing the carry-on back. So having to pay for those two bags. But the carry-on will have to have my clothes and Nathaniel's clothes for almost a week. Come on up, puppy. We can do laundry while we're there, so we don't have to bring too much. But of course, you always have to think about what knitting will you bring. So definitely this. And then I'll need to bring something small on the small end. So maybe I will bring my Christmas Eve cast on. These are my Feathering the Nest socks. And I am using this beautiful red. This is called On Trial. It's Nora George Yarns. And I've got 2 socks going right here, so I could bring that with me. I am not 100% sure what other project I will bring. I don't think I'm going to have enough room to bring my Arconia sweater, so I'm going to try and at least get the trunk done and a start on the sleeves, or a sleeve, so then when I come back, it's just getting the sleeves done and then the neckline and then blocking. So I should be able to meet the deadline. But yes, this will be one project that definitely comes along with me. And then I need to figure out what else I will work on, because it's always nice to have a project in hand for the plain and for just doing some enjoyable knitting. Obviously, I cannot bring the circular sock machine with me. Too heavy. Anyway, so that is what is the big thing happening in the next few days. Trying to think if there's anything exciting that has happened the past week. Lots of stuff with my circular sock machine, so lots of knitting happening, and just trying to enjoy some warm weather before heading towards that Toronto polar vortex. Brr. Definitely the big coat is coming with me, and hats and mitts and scarves and all those nice warm woolies. I don't have a proper pair of winter boots anymore, so I'm going to have to figure that one out. I used to have a pair of bogs, but I think I left them in Toronto rather than bringing them with me. They weren't the best fit, so I donated those before I left. Kind of regretting that now, so not sure what I will do. Next week, since I am in Toronto, I am not going to do a podcast, so it will be 2 more weeks until we are back here and having some nice crafting time, and you'll be able to see what I got up to in Toronto craft-wise, and then once I've returned, what I have been up to then. And hopefully by then you'll see a finished Arconia sweater, or a very close to finished Arconia sweater. Should be, I'm hoping, finished by then. We'll see. Next week, though, instead of doing a regular podcast, I still have a few days of footage from London because I did Vlogmas. So from December 1st onwards, I had a little bit of London, but I have a few days in late November. I think I've got the Tower of London. I have the Thames link on there as well, which is the boat. And I believe I also have Hampton Court Palace. And then a day that we tried to get to Kensington Palace. I think that's the day we ended up going to the Tower of London instead. I can't remember exactly. I've got to go through that footage. Anyway, I have all of that on this lovely little SD card here, and I'm thinking I will edit and put that up next week for you instead of a regular podcast. So if you are inclined to watch some time in London, that will be there and we can spend some time together. But if not, I will see you on the regular couch with regular crafting the week after. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to share that has been happening around here. The only main thing that has been happening around the river is we've been having super low tides. We are at the new moon, or we've just passed the new moon. So happy Lunar New Year for anyone who celebrates the Lunar New Year. But it has meant very, very low tides here because in the mountains, instead of rain, which comes down the rivers and helps to keep the tides a little bit more regular, it is snow up there, it stays up there, and the water levels are a little bit lower here in the winter. So our low tides are definitely very, very low. Trying to think if there's anything else. I have no footage off of the float this week. At one point I looked up and there were these beautiful seagulls circling. It was a whole group of them. It was absolutely gorgeous, but I knew I wouldn't be able to capture it on the camera and do it justice. So I enjoyed watching it with my own two eyes rather than grabbing the camera. So sorry about that. But that was, I think, the thing that stayed with me the most, this beautiful swarming, circling group of seagulls. I've never seen that around here before. Anyway, I think that is all I have for Bits and Bobs this week. I will see you back here in 2 weeks. But again, next week I will pop up some London footage. Thank you so much for joining me on Knitting on the Float this week. I hope that you've had a chance to sit down and relax, take care of yourself with some crafting and a wonderful, wonderful beverage. Well, I have chattered on away about circular sock knitting and hand knit needle sock knitting, as well as my beautiful sweater. I am looking forward to a week away, but I'm also looking forward to telling you about it when I get back in a couple of weeks. So until then, I am wishing you a wonderful couple of weeks, and I will see you soon on Knitting on the Float. Bye. It may be a bit noisy, but there's something really relaxing about taking this drill, putting the cone on, getting a nice little ball of yarn, attaching it there, and winding up beautiful rainbows. Loud, but very effective.